Okie dokie. Good evening out there. Tonight I have got a drawing that I actually did just a little while ago to help promote the work that I'm doing with Jason Doobie Shadowhunters on the Damage Inc. Kickstarter. One of his characters is a vampire. And there was a day where Jason was doing some 5-minute drawings and was working on one of his own characters. Now, I joined in with it, but to be honest, I didn't give myself 5 minutes. I gave myself a little bit more time than that. And basically because I really enjoy what I'm doing, and 5 minutes just didn't seem like a fair amount of time to the drawing that I'm doing. Now, most of the time, what I do is I work in Clip Studio. I start with a very loose blue level where I just use a colored pencil. I kind of stay loose. I'm trying to capture a little bit of body language. And then I start going back in over the top of it on a separate layer. Now, the reason why I do this is basically because I hate erasing. I'd rather just turn the level off. I'm lazy like that. And the other reason why is because I can start making outlines and start playing with the way things work in the background and whatnot. There's a couple different tools that I prefer to use. At different times, I try to choose different ones, but most of the time, I spend most of my time using the G pen, especially if I'm drawing women. You got to have all kinds of different line contours. They have to have like a certain amount of weight on everything that they do for them to look right. If you try to do everything with just a big fat marker pen, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. The pen function in Clip Studio is actually what feels like the closest to how I prefer to ink in real life when I'm using just like actual inks and markers or pens or even quills and whatnot. Now, the step that comes right after doing the blue lines is usually an outline. Sometimes I get carried away and I start doing other lines inside of it. Can't really help it. But I try to stick to the outlines as much as possible. Sometimes I even leave the outlines in on their own level, in their own, that's the word I'm looking for. On their own layer. Jesus, what's wrong with me? It's too late. I'm too tired. Working too hard. Anyway, I leave them on their own layer so I can mess around with their weight and their thickness in order to make them pop against the background. That level comes layer changes and whatnot. They come a little bit later. What the heck am I doing here? One of the things I really like about Clip Studio is drawing chains. It's actually really tedious. They have a pen for chains. It's pretty helpful for certain characters. Angry Brain, for example, wears a chain on his hip. This character has got a chain that wraps around her torso to a skull, and then she wears black leather pants. You know, because that's what all chicks wear. Black leather pants, skulls, and chains. Well, who am I to complain? Most of the time, I've got characters in my comic that are girls that are beating up on the boys left and right. I mean, for the very first time Sarah ever appeared anywhere, she had a t-shirt on that said, "I'm with stupid," and an arrow pointing in both directions. You know, I've had a lot of conversations with my sister Kira about drawing women. I like to make sure that I'm drawing women of all different shapes and sizes. This character, though, isn't my character design. Jason Doobie, his character design for her is she's always got a certain level of sexy to her. Now, what I did try to make her look like is I tried to make her a little bit more punk rock, a little bit more rock and roll, a little bit angrier than just some crazy, sultry Euro trash vampire chick. I wanted to give her an edge about her. I was thinking, you know, like hardcore or like punker mid 70s kind of New York vibe. So as I'm drawing her, I try to let her be feminine, but I also try to give her a couple of edges in different spots. Her face has got a tired but angry kind of look to it. Her face has got a certain level of concentration on it. Once again, I'm sticking with the G pen. I like it because I can lighten up how I'm doing it to try to change the line thickness. It's a lot easier than constantly changing thicknesses on the pens, at least from my point of view. I'll be honest. When it comes to drawing women, I will get lazy, mainly because women are a very complicated thing to draw, but they have to look simple. A lot of guys, how they get around that is they try to exaggerate their features, give them the biggest boobs possible or hips that are bent in ways that don't really make a whole lot of sense. Uh, to create that femininity without those kinds of tools is a little bit more challenging. Sometimes if the character is a character that's heavier set, or sometimes the character is somewhere in the middle, it can be a lot more difficult to be subtle than it can be to be exaggerated. Ugh. Wow, watching me draw these lips, it just looks painful trying to get the lips right, back and forth and back and forth. I mean, part of me wishes I sped this up. Now, sometimes when I'm doing this, I can get also a little focused off in the details or try to get like confess or obsessed with a little bit of it. Like right here, you'll see me probably redo her mouth over and over again, mess with it, change it. One of the things I love about inking in digital is that if you've missed sizes or if your line isn't exactly where you want it to be, just making a small adjustment can be a massive time saver. If you try to do that in real inks, you've got a whole lot of work on you. Now, one of the tricks that I do about brunette hairstyles, and I learned this from reading about Drew Hayes and about how he does solid blacks inside of his comic and whatnot. And I started noticing it when I got a hold of some of the works from some of the other like masters of illustration, guys like, excuse me, guys like Sam Keith. Sometimes it's a lot easier to black the entire thing out and then go back and drop in some the lines where you just erase some of it to create the highlights instead of trying to draw them and fill in everything like one hair strand at a time with different strokes. It just ends up becoming impossible that way. So I end up layering the hair, going back with other finer brush strokes, trying to add in some more detail as I go. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. When it comes to doing people that have got black hair and stuff like that, I swear to God, I spend all my time trying to be Drew Hayes. If you've never read an issue of Poison Novels, it's probably the best fantasy comic book that was ever written. It had a punk rock mixed with fantasy vibe to it, and it's still to this day one of my favorite things. I wish to God we'd never lost that guy. Having him dead is just like losing a hero, and it's rough. Now, when it comes onto this part, you're going to start seeing me add tiny little details to reflect either light or shape. Um, it really depends on what it is that I'm going for. With her, trying to draw a character that's got all that black in them, you have to try to find little spots where you can fill in with empties to try to create some contour like this. And I try to do the little contours on the inside with a little bit of a black outline. That way it makes it look like the light's bouncing off of more than one light source. And I also tried to imagine that what she's wearing, this tube top kind of thing, that it's got more of a purpose than just having a tube top. So I kind of tried to make it look as athletic as possible, like it was there to help her be able to fight. Because she's a hand-to-hand fighter. She's got claws. She's a vampire. She bites. That's how she's supposed to be. You don't have that, and you pretty much just have a chick in a tube top. Still going for trying to knock all my blacks out, following the Inker's guidebook and that kind of stuff, trying to get that done first. You'll see pretty much the same thing as on the tube top. I'll try to find where the light sources I want them to come from and then start just leaving little trails like the light was hitting the pants at certain angles. On this one though, I'll try to make it look like a little bit more leathery, like it's got pieces that are at an angle and there's wrinkles inside of it. But at the same time, you have to keep remembering to have curves, the right kind of curves. If you don't have any curves at all, then it's just so much more difficult to make it look like a woman. You got to find a balance. Can't be all boobs and butts. Oh man, it's so hard to go back and watch these things and not be critical of myself. Every line I'm drawing, I think you sit here and think, well, if you did it this way, if you did it this way, you did it this way. Your mind kind of does that, plays tricks on you as it tries to convince you that there's all these other ways you could have gone. Now, when Jason does these 5-minute drawings, they're very simple. He has a chibi style. It doesn't take much time, but it does a good job of conveying the emotion that he's looking for. And some of the 5-minute ones that Jason does are pretty complicated, and he's trying to pull them off. So it can suffer. That's why I didn't limit myself on time, because I'd rather it was looking good than suffer all the way through it and get obsessive. I admit it. I think from his point of view, he even called it out on his little video blog. Video, what is it called? Vlog. There it is. That's the word I was looking for. But I've been doing a lot more of these on Kickstarter. Since this last Kickstarter campaign's been going on, I've been trying to make as many videos about everything that I could, share them wherever I can share them, try to talk about what's going on in the book. Like, for example, tonight as I'm recording this, we're at 55%, which is an awesome spot to get to. A little over $1,000 has been backed, and I'm looking to find help with the last $900 of it. We got a lot of different fans of the Shadowhunters. We've got damaging fans all over Sacramento, so it's just a question of getting everybody in front of what's going on so that they can be a part of it. Ugh. Watching myself draw fingers and hands hurts my eyes. Oh, there's a thumb. Thumb's not bad. Awkward position. It is what it is. What this character does, and the way I illustrate it in the comic book, is she's got this charismatic power. She's not just a vampire that runs in, slashes and gashes and drains the blood. She also has this power of, it's kind of like a seductive mental control power. The way I tried to illustrate it in the book, as you can see a few seconds ago in the blue where there's all those clouds under by her feet, is that her powers take the form of these clouds that kind of roll in, like those 1980s rock videos. Wherever you see like Tanya Katane crawling on the hood of a Mustang or something, there's always these big rolling clouds behind them, the smoke that's like floating out onto the set. So for some reason, whenever I'm thinking about the Shadowhunters, I always try to make it feel like it's a 1980s hair metal concert. I don't know why I do that. It's just something that works for me when I'm trying to imagine the kind of life that they lead. And if you're the kind of character that actually puts out the kind of vibes that lets you control people, like the vampire, then why wouldn't you be a rock star? That's pretty much what she ends up being. There's quite a few different images that I've used to help build her over time, and I'm pretty proud of them. I love these tools in Clip Studio. They give me so many other choices. You try to draw clouds by hand and you get those big bubbles that you see. You use a tool, and you get some crazy, beautiful shapes and stuff, especially if you manipulate them just right, start playing with the levels, reduce their opacity. There's so many techniques that you can use to try to make the kind of things that you want to roll into. I learned a lot about that when I was working on Inheritance. The gentleman that was my co-creator was always asking me to come up with these crazy ways to show special effects. And as a result of those special effects, I had to start playing with all kinds of opacities and levels. Like there were comic book pages that had something like, oh God, I think the worst one had something like 5,000 layers by the time I was done messing around with every single light source and every single shape. I know that sounds insane, but the person I was working with, he was definitely insane. We made a good book while we were working together, but he definitely had his ideas about how he wanted things done. Now, the good part about it, though, is I learned a lot of different things from Manga Studio, which is now Clip Studio, so that I could go ahead and keep that style and keep moving along with it. I'm pretty proud of the way this one ends up. It was originally meant to just be that little drawing, and it's a pinup that I'm actually going to be adding to the book once we hit our next level of backers. Once we've got 50 backers, I'm going to go ahead and add this in so that we've got another pinup. Everybody likes hot vampire pinups. Who doesn't? Hot purple vampire pinups. Yeah, it's a pretty simple image. It's pretty cool, though. I just really do love the whole rock star vibe. Playing with all the opacities, trying to get the exact right kind of color. Another benefit of doing this digitally. You try to color a background by hand, you are done as soon as you've got it on there. This way, though, I get to make choices, get to make changes. Switching the tools, switching the tools. What the hell am I looking for? Oh, what do I got now? Looks like more clouds. Yep, more clouds. Now, what I like to do with slapping out that haphazard cloud like that, and spreading it around to make it look random, after it's on there, I can delete the background a little bit. I can change the opacity onto it. It's something I like to do in backgrounds and foregrounds because when you're in real life and you're walking down the street, the shadows of things, they fade away as things get farther, and there's different reasons for that. You got the way your eyesight works, you got the things that are between you and there, you got particles in the air. Nothing looks perfectly clear. And as a matter of fact, the farther away it goes, the more that happens. I use that to my advantage when I'm trying to shade things. I try to layer things up in as many different places as I can, and then use the opacity and use deleting them to try to manipulate where things are focused and trying to manipulate the way light goes through an image. Of course, right now I'm eating something. Got that fatty meal pen. Usually those are just for blackouts. Oh, I got now. I'm switching over to some. There we go. So one of the other things that I learned sometimes is that you can do things like copy the layer for the inks and then start blending some things around, add some stuff in, and I start doing it on different layers to go ahead and be able to create some shading. It's one of the reasons I love working in gray tone is I can build up those kind of layers. So if I have to put color on it, I can put it underneath those things and get all kinds of different effects with it. But I try to stick to it as much as possible when I'm doing those gray tones because I really think that that depth that gets created when you have all these different layers of shade actually does a fantastic job of making the entire thing seem way bigger, way more real, way more like you can see into it. But at the same time, like it's not real. It has like a dreamy effect to it. Especially if I'm drawing somebody using magic powers, I really like to push that as far as I can. Trying to work on the shadows. That one's at 30%. I always start at 30%. That way I can kind of see what I'm doing. Later on, I can either darken it up or lighten it up. But whenever I'm trying to put shading on a picture, I always start at 30%. Now, I was pretty happy with this image overall. Because she was a vampire, I really didn't have to get too much into the shading on top of her skin. I didn't have to mess around with colors too much because if the more black and white she looks, the better. I did manage to layer a ton of different purple and shadows inside of the background by the time it was done. to make it pop. I'm pretty proud of that. But she's supposed to have a monstrous edge to her. So it's just something you can't really avoid. It's got to be where it should be. More vampire drawing. More vampire drawing. Looks like I'm working on the skull. That's awesome. I really do love the software. It's so versatile. You do a lot of different things. Makes me feel good about the way it goes business. Or just painting. Odd to, it's difficult to see where the marker is. Mm. See me as I'm zooming in, trying to see that, trying to use the different shadows to close certain stuff off. Got to push it back. Got to layer it up. Oh, zooming in. Now what do we got going on? Gonna switch over to the pen. And now this tool is cool. That tool you just saw it use, that arrow and that green line, it actually takes other lines and makes them thicker just by going over it. Pretty awesome and useful when you're trying to mess around with the depth. But sometimes you just gotta outline something black to make it look right. Got a buddy, and he's got a Harley that he bought from another country, and he wishes to God it was black, but it's not. He's got all kinds of different colors on it, and it was a good deal for him, but he wishes to God he'd gotten black so that it could have had its classic look and texture. Still working on her abdomen. I remember working on the abdomen for a whole long time. I mean, every bit of drawing has its own chances. It takes its own time. But that's just how things go. Hmm. Can't you tell it's so late here? I'm getting exhausted. Comes from waking up at 4 a.m., driving an hour and a half to 2 hours, going to work for 12 hours, driving home. It's a challenge, I tell you. Challenge I enjoy for the most part, but you do what you gotta do. Oh, she's got red lips now. She's getting dangerous. Dangerous. Ooh. Yeah, you can tell. I can't see. Dwarfs can't see. All right, guys. So that's what we got. Beautiful drawing. A beautiful example of the kind of stuff that I really enjoy doing. Do me a favor, check out my website at www.kickstarter.angrybrainartworks. Right there, you're going to find the link bringing you out onto Kickstarter where you can check out all the different reward levels and find something that'll work for you. All kinds of killer stuff out there, man. You got all kinds of beautiful books on the PDF label. I brought in not one, not two, but all the way up to 7 and 8 other PDFs on top of my own that are going to be out there by creators like Russell Nolte, creators like Clay, excuse me, like Clay. There's all kinds of really beautiful ones in there. Stuff I'm really proud of. So you should check it out. You get a ton of PDFs for back in this campaign. And that's the way it should be. You should be able to get a bunch of awesome stuff and check things out and see what kind of work people that you love have been doing and how to make that work. Okay. All right. So everybody, we've got just a few days left on that Kickstarter. It's going to be closing on Saturday. We've got a lot of fun things left to do. I'm hoping I actually have an interview with Target on Saturday. Target and I were the first two members of Damage Inc., and I would love to be able to take a few minutes of my time and get him on there. I might even be able to do a live broadcast, so we'll see how that goes. Other stuff I got planned, I'm going to try to do at least one or two more speed drawings this week to post these up there, as well as some more original artwork. We'll see how that part goes. But for right now, I want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to everybody who's backed the campaign so far. It's come a long ways in just a little bit of amount of time, but we still got plenty of room to be able to wrap this thing up. And this week, it's going to be an amazing week to see that happen. I'm really grateful for getting this opportunity, and I really appreciate all the work and effort other people have put into helping me share, helping me get backers, promoting the books. There's comic book creators who have sent it out to their own fan base. There's guys who have helped me by creating pinups, like Eli and like Jason Doobie. And I've even got some original art from other creators out there that we're also putting up for the book. So I appreciate everybody checking it out and backing the campaign. I really enjoyed making this book, and I cannot wait to hear feedback from all the backers who are reading it. So anyway, everybody, have a fantastic night. And once again, that website is www.kickstarter.angrybrain.com. Thank you, and good night.